Why your goal in real estate investing should be to get to 4 rental properties. That's it. You don't need 50. You don't need 100. Just 4. That's today's episode. Let's dive into it. Here we are at our very first rental property. Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris, longtime real estate investor. This is the channel where we really try to help you build financial intelligence, the things that you weren't taught in high school about wealth building. I think in my high school, I was taught how to balance a checkbook, and that's about it. Most people are taught, get a job, get a 401k. This is the channel that flips all of that on its ear. Now, I've been doing real estate investing for a number of years, and I started with just 2 rental properties and had those 2 rental properties for a long time. And they were producing each about $900 a month in cash flow. Imagine just adding 2 more to that. How would your life look any different? Imagine, would that be able to get you out of the rat race, a 9-to-5 job? Well, I've got a special guest on the show today to talk all about this topic, and he has really zeroed in on the idea of the 4 rental property paradigm. My guest is Michael Zuber. He is the author of One Rental at a Time. He's been a guest on the show before. You got to go back, and we deep dived this episode before where we talked about Michael's book. Michael, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Clayton. It's always fun to be here.
Well, real pleasure to have you, and I like talking to real investors. The other day I read a quote in a newspaper article from some professor who was talking about real estate investing, and he clearly had never bought a property in his life, but he wanted to weigh in on what he knew about investing. And people then are guided by that kind of intelligence out there that exists in newspaper articles and schooling. So I love being able to talk to real investors like yourself who know what they're doing, who've been gone through, have the cuts and scrapes and bruises to prove what you've done. So Michael, for our audience that doesn't know about you, take us a little bit backward here and tell us your story. How did you get involved in real estate investing?
So it all started on my 30th birthday. I don't know you, but the 30th birthday was one of those numbers for me where I had to kind of self-assess where I was. And where I really got to is I spent my 20s making a decent income, but frankly wasting time and that money. I was a burned out stock market investor, happened to turn 30 right during the dot-com crash, where preceding that I was seemingly a stock market wizard, and I reported income of over $100,000 in day trading profits, and was taxed accordingly. And then suddenly I lost all of that, and suddenly I know what it means to write off $3,000 a year for seemingly forever. Because that's what you're limited in your losses, but they take all your profits so that the IRS gets theirs for a long time. So I realized I had to do something different. I realized I could not continue working as hard as I was in my 20s when I was older. I took this time to look up my org chart. I happened to be in a sales career that was 90 days driven. You could make a nice if you were good at it. I was. When I looked at people that were 10, 15, 20 years older than I was, they were in most cases overweight. They were seemingly very unhappy. They were on their 2nd or 3rd marriages. And I looked at that going, I don't want to be them. And so I had to figure it out. So I remember going to a bookstore and trying to figure out how can I do something. So what I found was real estate very quickly. I ended up buying seemingly every book on the planet, well over 100 books. And because I traveled so frequently and I had a crazy life, I read books on airplanes. So I had, seemingly 20 to 30 hours of reading I could get done a week. And, that's where I was, right? So I decided that landlording, buy and hold was going to be my thing. I wasn't into flipping. Wholesaling was not a thing back then. I just wanted to buy 1 rental at a time because I believed the story that someday, somewhere, I would be the day job. I didn't know when. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that it could work. So that's what we did. We ended up finding a market 2.5 hours away, and we started buying that 1 rental at a time. So I was busy. I had family responsibilities. I didn't have a lot of money to start, but my why was really, really strong. And I just didn't want to be what I saw above the org chart, and I had to find a way out.
Wow, that's inspiring. And there's a lot of people watching right now who are in that same position. I hear from them. I heard from I hope he doesn't mind my telling the story, but a police officer in a big city in this country, served for a lot of years, has a few years left to get his pension, but he's got a bunch of rentals. He has 4 rental properties, and he's like, I'm right there. He's like, and he asked me the question, should I quit my job? And that's a lot for, I said, look, I can't give you that advice. That's a very personal
Yes.
question that you need to grapple with, because there's a lot of things at play here. And if you're that close to your pension, and you want to stick around for another 7 years, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
What would you say to him? I kind of said, look, you have to really make that determination. Maybe you could add another rental property if you feel like you're right there, but you're not quite over that hump yet, and you live in an expensive city also.
Yeah. Like if you're a policeman or public servant or in the military and you're 15 years into the 20, which again, if you don't know, you earn up at your 20th year. I'd be like you. I'd be like, ooh, I'm not really sure I want to answer this, because myself, I'd be like, I'm out, right? I know what it's like to be out of the rat race, but also I never spent 15 years of a 20-year journey, and you're on that last lap. And again, if you get to that 20th year, the rewards are pretty cool, right? They basically pay you a salary for the 80% of your highest income year for the rest of your life. That's some pretty good money to walk away from. I get it. So I would be like you. I'd be like, ooh, I'm not sure I can answer this because I don't know what it's like to put my life on the line, right? I mean,
that's the other part of it, right? Every day you're getting up and protecting people, and it can be scary. So every day, your wife might be saying, "Hey, I really wish you'd retire," and I don't want you out there in that line of fire. And so that's a tough one. And at the end of the day, too, 7 years is a long time. So if you're thinking, well, I'm going to just stick it out for another 7 years for this pension, 7 years is a long time to wait, too. You can be doing a lot of other things in 7 years. And I think a lot of people get held back by these quote unquote golden handcuffs, whether they are a retirement plan, a pension plan, etc. So, but that's a topic for another day, I guess. But let's talk about the 4 rental property paradigm. I mentioned at the top of the show, I mentioned the police officer who I believe has 4 properties. Why did you zero in on that number? And why do you think 4 rental properties kind of does it for people?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple answers to that. And it really goes back to, I'm sure you have experience. When we get invited out to speak at real estate events, we get interviewed on channels like this or others. It's often about, tell me your story, right? Tell me your financial freedom story. And while that's a 15-year journey, it involves, 175 units. And what happens there is people smile. If you're in person, they want to take a picture with you, a selfie. They're really excited. But what I've learned over the years when you pay attention is this is what happens, right? So the person up shakes your hand, takes a selfie with you, posts it on social media. They go back to their car. They look at their significant other and go, wow, wasn't that, we can't do it. We can't do it. They just don't see going from 0 to financial freedom, right? So that's the first thing, right? And as somebody who does this, people, I find it very frustrating. Get them excited, I can get them energized, but I can't get them to take action. So that's a failure on my part, right? I sort of internalize that as well. Okay, my story's not resonating, but they don't do anything. And if you don't do anything, I don't know why I'm wasting my time, right? Because I want to inspire 1,000 people to do something. So what I've realized is you have to have a better story. So what I zeroed in on when I kind of self-reflected and like, how can I fix this is, I got to 4, and I got to 4 for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, as you know, Clayton, the easiest rental properties to get invested are the first 4, right? It still fits Fannie and Freddie. You can, you don't need reserves, you don't need seasoning, all that stuff. That's 4. And the other thing is it's simple, right? You can count them on one hand. And the last thing is the most important thing. It gets them off 0. 0 is the hardest number to move people. And if I couldn't move people talking about 0 to financial freedom, now I'm focused on if I can just get you to 4 and I can get you to believe how to get to 4, then once you're there, we can have a different conversation. The conversation at 4 is, what do you think? Do you like it? Or is it driving you crazy? Right? If it's driving you crazy, just be done. Right? 4 is going to, may not make you financially free, but I guarantee you it'll change your financial future. And if I can just get people to 4 and then realize that landlording's not for them, I still think I've done my goal because I've got you off 0. And 4 free and clear properties in 15 to 30 years will change everybody's life because they'll provide tax benefits while you're holding them, and life is good. But if you do like landlording and you get to 4, cool, because now we can talk about getting to 10, which is the next financing hurdle. So I find it's far more, I get a lot more action from people when I go, hey, don't think about financial freedom. That's an end all be all goal. Let's talk about how soon I can get you to 4. And usually that's 2 years or less. Most people go, well, I think I can buy one every 6 months. Or maybe they go, I can buy one every year. Well, great. In 4 years of this business group, and I've gotten you off 0. It's very frustrating putting all of your passion on trying to help people, this one rental at a time idea, and then they don't take action. And as the person talking about it, I put that on myself, that my story or my story is not resonating, it's not taking action, and that's a mistake. And that's on me, not on them.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. The idea that, well, only 4 properties, and it's attainable for a lot of people. Because I think so many people think that they have to get to 100 properties, or they hear all these real estate gurus talking about thousands of doors and all this stuff. Honestly, for most people, when I ask the question, what is your freedom number? For a lot of people, it's very minimal. It could be under 10, it could be 8, it could be 7 properties that it could take for you to achieve financial freedom. I know for me, I buy, in the Midwest, so in Indiana and Michigan, and I have some in Florida and Pennsylvania and those areas. And it didn't take me very long to achieve financial freedom, and it was not a huge number. And I think that's a really compelling point to make, because if you think about even 4 properties, let's just take, I don't know, what are your typical properties cash flow? What's like a monthly cash flow for you?
I would say my houses are at least $300 a month. At
least $300 a month. And that's net. So if you've got leverage on them, or otherwise, I've got $400 up to $900 up to $1,000 a month in cash flow. So imagine how would that change your life? If you've got 4 of those properties, what would that look like for you? And how could that possibly change your life? For a lot of people, they don't need to be a millionaire, right?
Yeah. No, again, and I think, so a couple of things. First off, I think being a millionaire is the wrong goal. I think we have been sold a bill of goods from the financial services industry. Think about $1 million, put a little bit away. This 401k thing is a joke to me. Why would I want to do something, put a little bit of money away for 40 years and hope that life is the future, when instead I could do real investing in 5, 10, 15 years, fundamentally change my life. And the key is, don't think about being a millionaire. I don't pay my bills because my net worth is $1 million, right? I bills on income. So if I have my income up, having rental properties that some other people pay for is key. And when I answered the cash flow question, that was after full leverage, right? That's 75% leverage, cash flowing $300 a month. But if you take those 4 and that's all you get, and then you pay them off, right, with a 15-year note or 30, again, your call as the investor, right? Cash flow jumps to $800 or $900 a month. And again, life is good. So when I talk about getting people off 0, I mean it, right? If you just get to 4, I promise you your financial future will be different. It may not be your freedom number, but again, when you're done and you have 4 free and clear houses that are paid off, what do you think a house is worth in 30 years? It's probably double or triple what it is today. Your net worth is going to skyrocket. You'll have income coming in over and beyond Social Security or any pension or anything. So I feel really good. If I can inspire people just to go from 0 to 4, I will count that as a win. And then when you get to 4, you're going to know if this business is for you or not. And if you want to keep going, go for it, because you'll know. But if you don't, I don't feel bad, right? You got to 4, your life's better. I feel like I've done my job.
You talk about speaking to people. I have the same experience. You speak in front of an audience, or you're speaking to your YouTube audience or podcast, and people say, I've taken 2 years. I still haven't taken action. I haven't dove into it yet. How do you move? Do you notice like a common denominator for people that sort of still sit there and don't take action versus the people that do? Is there something that you could illuminate us about the type of person that actually does take massive, imperfect action to achieve something, even if they're going to get some cuts and scrapes along the way?
Yeah, so I boiled down after many like years of conversations to people to asking one question, because I think talking to people my whole life, which is what my career has been, I realized that you have to simplify things. So when I have somebody stuck in analysis paralysis or 2 years of doing nothing, the only question I ask is, what's your buying criteria? It's that simple. And then I shut up. I wait for the answer, because if the answer is some convoluted story, that's what we need to fix. You don't have a buying criteria. You're looking for a shiny object. You're looking for a unicorn. you don't have a buying criteria. But if you can say, I'm looking for $300 a month, or I'm looking for a 5% yield on my cash, or an 8%, or 15, whatever it is, then we can have a real conversation, because you need to know your buying criteria. I'm fine creating a box, right? Create that box as your buying criteria. But once something enters that box, you have to write an offer. So if the first answer is some long convoluted answer, I tell them, stop looking at real estate. You don't know what's going on. Go away in a quiet room and think about your buying criteria. If they do have a decent buying criteria, I'm like, no, you don't, because you've seen stuff that hits it and you're not taking action for whatever reason. Let's talk about that. What is holding you back? Is it fear? Is it stories from a significant other? Is it your mom or your dad or your uncle or your cousin giving you some negative information, right? So we have to figure out, is your network poisoning the well, or what's going on? But the answer is that I have found most impactful is to go, what is your buying area? And then been waiting to see what people say.
Right. I mean, you could listen to us. You and I did a story back during Halloween. You and I did landlord horror stories. And so many people want to tell them stories about, real estate investing. It's like, I hear horror stories from people in the stock market. I hear horror stories from people that invested in crypto. There's going to be horror stories all the time. You had some horrible stories that you shared on that episode of the Landlord Horror Stories episode. I had some horrible stories that I shared about a company that we worked with that lied to us about renovations that they had completed and rent payments that were fake, or they were giving us differentials in rent that weren't accurate according to a lease. I mean, that could have, I could have thrown in the towel. I could have thrown in the towel and said, I'm never investing again because of this one company that lied to us. Well, guess what? Then you're out of the game. I mean, so people sit on the couch all the time and they hear these stories and like, I'm never doing that. Uncle Danny had a bad experience one time.
Exactly. Uncle Danny. Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's, again, you and I talk all the time to different investors, and I'm finding a trend. The horror stories, are infrequent, right? You and I talked about stories that happened over decades, and yeah, they're to think about now, but trust me, they were horrible to experience. We should do another show about all the great things, and let's just be clear, right? I bought 2 decades of freedom. I retired at 45, where a lot of my peers who made more money than me won't be done until they're 65. My quality of life, I would dare say, is higher doing what I want when I want than somebody who has to chase a quota for the next 20 years. So, there's lots of great stories, but they're not talked about enough, right? They get lost in the noise. I guess it's just the trend that people like negative, or I don't know if they like it, but it sells better, or
of course.
I don't know what it is.
Well, look, I came from the press world. There's a reason that you don't read newspapers and there's good, feel-good stories. I mean, they're buried in the back of newspapers. I worked for a news director in Philadelphia one time who said, I was hired as like the fun morning show guy, and he said, we're not going to renew your contract because we want to take the show in a hard news direction where we want to kind of off the top of the show, it's murder, violence, this, that, and the other thing. So when you read newspapers, that's what it's all about. That's what sells, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, it's guys like you and I that are trying to change that. We're trying to be a single voice in a hurricane. But our consistent effort, I've seen you've been doing this a long time, very successful. I'm trying to follow in your foot. We're just going to keep doing it. And slowly but surely, people will see the goodness. I think we need to do it up, right? I think talking about 4 rentals is part of it, because I think people get lost in the financial freedom story, right? They think it's a step too far for some special circumstances that doesn't work for them, which is wrong. Everybody can do this business. That's the beauty of real estate. You can do it at any age, at any time, in any sex, and any income. And, we just have to keep talking about it being possible, keep telling our stories, and do a better job when it's not resonating, right? If talking about financial freedom doesn't cause action, well, shame on us. We need to change our story. Let's cause some positive action. And right now, my feeling is talking about getting to 4 rentals is that positive action, because people can see going from 0 to 4. And then you and I in a year or two will talk about, okay, well, great. Now you got to 4. Let's talk about getting to 10. And, that'll be a different conversation.
Well, awesome stuff. I love it. His book, if you want his story, deeper dive on other topics, check out his book, One Rental at a Time. You can find it on Amazon. My guest has been Michael Zuber, who quit his 9-to-5 job. His goal is to help 1,000 people take the move and actually get this in the right direction and get out of the rat race and start investing. Just start with 4 properties. That's all you need to do. Michael, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Clayton.
And thanks to all of you for subscribing and downloading. Please share this with someone who you believe in your family could use financial intelligence and who could take that step. Maybe this is the episode that you need, right? That you could provide to a family member, to somebody else who could actually move you in the right direction. This could be the kick in the pants that you need to get off the couch, like what Michael and I were just talking about. I hope it is. I would love to hear your comments in the thread below about taking action and what is holding you back from financial freedom. We'll see you next time here on the show. Now go out there, take action, and become a real estate investor. I believe it's the #1 way to build wealth. We'll see you next time.